following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, January 18th, 2022, Season 17, Episode number 100. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Nick, there is no 100, but we didn't get a 99 yesterday because we had other things to talk about. So why don't you give me a 99 today?
Antoine Woods.
There we go.
I can't think of it.
That's what I thought about it.
Like the only 99 I can think of is like a guy named Hervin McCormick.
I remember the name. 90s? Was he in the 90s?
Yeah. That's about it, though. I mean, there's been others, but I'm sure there's some good ones. I don't know.
Wasn't Chris Canty 99?
Cool. Yeah.
It's not as fun now. It's not as fun.
It's just,
It
yeah.
just lost it.
Yeah.
No.
It's lost its mojo.
It's lost its luster.
I think we're at 0-0. That's where we are. 100.
0-0
Yeah.
be rowdy. Good to know. Just throwing it out there.
All right.
Still smiling.
Well, we do have, this is the final regular season show. We will be moving to our off-season schedule starting next week. It actually is the last show we're going to do this week. And just so you guys know, here's the schedule. We got all the normal shows today at their normal times. Tomorrow there will be a joint show, which Nick will be hosting. And then on Thursday there will be another joint show that Dave will be on but not hosting.
Thursday?
Have you not gotten the...
I was told I was taking Thursday off, but okay, we'll figure it out.
I didn't see your schedule. I didn't see the schedule.
We talked about it.
I know, but I didn't see it.
I told you what it was.
This is
You
very...
would think we all sit like in
No,
different corners.
this is
of
very
the room.
us. This is very us.
Dave, you do have a calendar on that one, buddy.
I'll figure it out. I really just wanted to give Derek a hard time.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, well, that's fair. I can accept that. I just wanted to make sure people were talking, so that's good. At least somebody talked to you. So, yes, we will have a joint show on Thursday. We'll have Media Mash on Wednesday, I think, Nick, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So there'll be a Media Mash on Wednesday as well. And then next week, we will be flipping to our off-season schedule. You guys can catch us every Wednesday at 11:30. We will be doing our show from 11:30 to 12:30 every Wednesday. And so Dave will also be starting up the draft show. I'm sure he's already got some good ideas rolling on that one. He's going to be hosting that this year. So Mr. Dave will be taking my spot on that show. That'll be happening on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think, at 10 a.m. So make sure you check that out. We'll have the full schedule up on the app. I'm sure William will have that up for you later this week. And you'll be able to see what all the shows are and the schedule for them starting next week. All right, let's jump in. There were a few topics that we didn't get to yesterday about the game that I still wanted to hit today. I want to start first with the running game. We didn't get a lot of time on the running game yesterday, although we kind of dabbled into it a little bit. Yes, Sunday, Zeke was 12 for 31 yards. His long was 9 yards. He also had 4 targets and only 1 catch for 0 yards. Pollard, on the other hand, had 4 carries for 14 yards. His long was 8. He had 2 targets and 2 catches for 12 yards. My question is, why do you think they refused or decided not to use Tony Pollard more in that game than they did?
I don't know. It's a valid question. Maybe we can one day ask a coach about it if they're ever available to talk to us after the game.
Was that ever discussed after the game? Was that a question that ever got thrown out to
So, especially in COVID times, just to give you an idea, because it's fair. Like, that's our job, is to grill these guys. That's why we're there. But, like, Nick spends the post-game talking to anybody that's, Nick is the pool reporter for anybody in the locker room that's not the coach or a star.
Yeah,
so
they weren't playing along this week. Just
they were not.
In case you guys didn't notice yesterday, Nick made it clear they weren't playing along.
Nick's still sore from all the stiff arms he took to the face.
Right.
They should have used those on San Francisco.
And then Jerry's going simultaneously as so then there's a green room where, like, your Zeke, your Amari Cooper, your big name guys, they all go. McCarthy, Dak, and Micah get the main podium. Jerry's talking in the middle of all of this. So the point is like, you're kind of bouncing around. I did not get to talk to Mike McCarthy this week. I usually don't. And so I didn't get to ask him about it. I don't know if he even was asked about it. Again, with the way the game ended and all of the other storylines, you kind of divvy that up and you're like, okay, that we can ask that Monday in the wrap-up. there hasn't been a wrap up.
Yeah, and that is expected sometime this week, either tomorrow or Thursday. They're expecting that there's going to be a McCarthy press
with the amount of stuff that's in flux, Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn are both interviewing for other jobs. Like I guess I get why they're doing that, but it is just kind of frustrating to not have a chance to follow up on that. I don't have a wonderful answer for you. I will say, in defense of them, the offensive line got pancaked. Dak was running for his life. He got sacked 5 times. Zeke helped him out in pass protection quite a few times. We've said that a lot. I know people get tired of hearing it, but I do think that was a big reason why he's on the field. Why he tripled the number of carries as Tony Pollard, I don't know, because you don't need to pass protect if you're running the ball. Mm-hmm. And Zeke comes out after the game and says, yeah, I've had a torn PCL this whole time, partially torn. I'm just like, well, and Tony's been hurt too, but I'm just like, maybe Tony should have touched the ball more often. I got nothing.
A lot of plays are run pass options. Mm-hmm. So, you have him out there, and Zeke's, they can't block. The offensive line couldn't block. Zeke's going to help more than Pollard will, obviously. He blocked 2 guys on one play on one time.
That was so awesome.
Yeah, it was a great play.
Great play.
So I think that having him out there, it's like they can actually do a little bit more things because they feel comfortable if they need to pass. They also can run the ball. The results are about the same. That's probably part of it. But yeah, Pollard could have helped. When you lose and you're not running the ball well, yeah, you want to get your dynamic players out there, and And that's on Kellen too. We've seen plays where they're both out there. Why is it that they only are on the field together just a couple of times? That's a wrinkle that we haven't seen in a while, I don't think. So
that's what I was about to mention is the lack of us seeing them use them both at the same time, especially when we talk about the tight end position and how you're missing someone that can actually help you block. When you have a guy like Zeke that you can utilize in that way, but also run the ball and keep him maybe. You're not really, as a defense, you're not really going to expect Tony Pollard to do much blocking, but it's another thing that you can at least try and see how it goes. And that's I don't know. But to kind of what you hinted yesterday, and I don't know if we were going to talk about that, but is it time?
Yeah, and I'll set it up for you. What I was getting to was, I think, watching them this year, I think there is a difference in how Tony Pollard runs the ball and how Zeke runs the ball. I think he's faster to the hole. I think he's quicker in and out of the hole. I think he's more decisive. I think he's more elusive. Obviously, he's faster. I actually think at this point, if I were making the decision, I would actually have him taking the bulk of the carries. That doesn't mean or at the very least, I would be splitting carries between them. It seems as though they're still in the mind frame that Zeke is the lead back on this team. I would shift away from that. I'd love to hear opinions from you guys on whether you think that what you saw this year makes you think it's time to maybe start shifting that a little bit more.
Well, let's see what's up with. Is he going to have knee surgery? That's what I want to know, because before the season, early in the season, before I guess the injury, I thought what they were doing is fine. If he legitimately has a partially torn PCL or whatever, it's something that might need a little, either surgery or something, or even a lot of rest. I'm okay with maybe going back and seeing how this thing plays out, because I think together both of them were really good, and if I can get Zeke healthy again, then I think it'd be better. Both of them healthy again, But didn't
he say that supposedly he won't need any kind of?
Yeah, but I don't believe damn near anything I heard after that. What? And first of all, does he know for sure? Second of all, maybe you get an opinion on it later. The number of guys that are just yeah, no, it'll be fine, it'll be good, and then I'll be. I'll be getting my oil changed in mid-February, and Adam Schefter will tweet that Zeke's having a knee scope. I'm like, cool. Let me call Nick. All right. Thought he didn't.
I'll be out too.
Yeah, thought he didn't need to do this.
Also, though, I'm fixing the O-line. 1,000%. I'm retooling all of that. I probably have 3 different starters across the board next year, somehow, some way. So
Three.
Yeah, 3.
3.
I'm with you on that. I think that's your biggest problem.
Who's the third?
I think Lyell's probably, or or Lyle is playing left guard for me all year.
I'm doing something with those three positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to have a new center for sure, and I got to have a new left guard. Now, whether that left guard is moving over from right tackle and Terrence Steele comes in, whatever, but you got to be careful with that because you can't trust Tyron right now. So you got to almost need the three. I don't know if Lyle's as agile anymore as he was. I don't think he is. I think he might be a guard. He's mean. He's nasty. He's not as maybe quick on his feet as he was. Maybe
I need some push in the middle, and I think he is physical enough where he might be able to give me some push in the middle. And I don't have that right now.
And if he's the enforcer, like they say, and he is, I mean, he showed that role. But I think he needs. I'm fixing the offensive line.
And you don't think, because I think that's one thing, and I think that's the biggest thing. I do think, at least from what I saw, and it might have everything to do with that PCL. It absolutely may have everything to do with the PCL. It just didn't look like Zeke had the same burst that I was used to seeing from Zeke. And Pollard looked like he did have it. And that's where I'm like, if it's not the PCL, if we find out that after this year you go into next year and it's the same thing, to me, I think you get more out of it. That means that you can get to the hole faster than what I think Zeke is doing. That matters.
The offensive line needs to be worked on, but I would like to see more of a 50-50 split. I still think the Cowboys still seem to have this attitude that like Tony Pollard is a nice backup instead of a weapon who needs to be touching the ball more often. I'm looking at his game logs right now. He had double-digit carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and 6 of those 8 were blowout wins. Like he's getting double-digit carries in the second half of games that are way out of hand. I think the only time where he got double-digit carries in a game that was really in doubt, it happened 3 times. Vegas, Patriots, Chargers. And he played well. He had 100 yards against the Chargers, had average 4 yards per carry against the Pats, and not so great against Vegas, 10 for 36. But even still, like I just feel like they still view him as a backup instead of a guy who can really help them. I would like to see it closer to 50%.
Do you think this is a nature of just NFL coaches, NFL locker rooms? I was trying to think of a situation across the NFL where you have a running back that has been the man for you, and he's still on a team, but his role diminishes. Most of the time in that instance, you see the guy go on. The team says, okay, we're going to let him walk. He's going to be a free agent, or we're going to cut him, or he's going to get traded or something. I couldn't really think of a lot of situations where a guy that's been the man, like he was the man here. The guy that's been the man, and it's just like, no, we think right now there's a back that's better than you, so we're going to decrease your role and increase their role. Do you guys see that the same way, or do you think this is just kind of just this situation, or more of a thing that just happens in the NFL? They just don't necessarily do that when it comes to lead running backs.
Well, Tony Pollard hasn't come in and just been like considerably better than Zeke. If he was, then that would be easier. I mean, I think he's faster, he's quicker, and he's more explosive. But I think that when you look at it, it's like still close because Zeke can do some things, better than Pollard. And so it hasn't been head and shoulders above. And that's probably why it hasn't just been a quick, like, we're switching this out, I think. But
we don't know if he can be as successful if given basically a bigger amount of snaps on the field. I can only recall one game. Was it last year or maybe 2 years? I think it might have been last year where he was the starter and Zeke was out. He didn't play again.
Yeah, San Francisco.
And he played pretty good to the point where everyone was asking Zeke to sit, for Tony Pollard to take over that role. But it does make me wonder on a weekly basis, is he the type of guy that can be as successful being so much on the field? Maybe right now we see him have those explosive plays because of the way that they're handling, and that allows him to be that effective on the field. But once you give him a bigger role, can he keep up with that?
And I'll throw this in too. I think he's a much better pass catcher at this point. I mean, how many times have we seen Zeke out in the flat and just ball hits his hands, he drops it, or for whatever reason it seems like he's not in the right spot? Or
I can't think so? I can't go along with that. And I think Tony Pollard deserves a larger role. And I'm not asking him to carry the ball 20 times. I'm asking him to inch toward double digits. I don't think he's done that his entire career. It's hovered between 6 and 8. But Zeke, for whatever we want to say about Zeke, he has been good as a receiver this season, in my opinion. And I am not talking about like being explosive and all these big plays. he's bailed Dak out a lot as like the holy crap, I'm about to get sacked. Let me get this out of here. He did it on Sunday. I know he bobbled the one on the last drive and didn't catch it, but Dak.
That was a good play, by the way. It was going to be a 1-yard loss.
Which one?
Maybe I'm thinking of a different play. There was like a little screen that they threw to him that he kind of one-handed. And
he's been doing that all year. Yeah. But what I was about to say is Dak basically lateraled to him on an obvious sack, and he turned it into like a small gain. He's done stuff like that all year, where he's just had the wherewithal to catch a holy crap outlet pass and turn a bad play into at least a neutral play, if not a good one. So I think, and let's not just give Tony all the flowers. Like, Tony's had some drops this year. I can't give you an obvious example, but I know there's at least been 3 or 4 occasions where, especially like over the middle of the field, he let it bounce off his hands. So I think Tony Pollard deserves a bigger role. I think Tony Pollard's a more explosive runner. I'm not convinced he's like this outright better receiver. I do think if you can get the ball in his hands, he's a more explosive player. That's what I will say.
You want to talk about the elephant that's sitting over there?
Let's go for it.
I mean, it's about a $30 million elephant. I mean, it's money is important in this conversation. It's why you can't really move on. I mean, you're stuck with Zeke, and I don't say that in a way that like that is what it is, but I mean, you're not moving him. So what I think the best way to handle this situation is figure out a better role for Tony Pollard that both of them can play, and I'm drafting a running back as well in the 4th or 5th round, a bigger back. Not a little scat back, but a bigger back. And if this guy comes in here with this retooled offensive line, like I just said, and he may be better, then that's what happens. I mean, I know I'm going back several years, but you know, they drafted Marion Barber, and they had Julius Jones already, and Marion Barber, after a few years, after 1 year, turned out to be, man, we got to get this guy on the field. And maybe that happens. Maybe you can strike gold, as we found out San Francisco has. But it's because their offensive line knows how to block in the running game.
If I were the Cowboys offensive coordinator, whoever that is, maybe it's Kellen Moore, maybe it's somebody new, but I would go to Tony the minute that all that's finalized, and I would be like, contract year, bud. You want a bigger role? You want a chance to maximize your earnings this time next year? Get in there, get great at pass protection. Like, learn this scheme, learn where you're supposed to be all the time, get to where Dak trusts you implicitly on 3rd and 9, and make yourself interchangeable. Don't make us have to feel like we need to take you off the field in certain situations. And I would love to see a true split between him and Zeke next year. And I do think.
What about my new guy?
If they draft a new guy, that's fine.
What about my 4th rounder from Mississippi State or whatever?
And by the way, keep them coming.
Hey,
every couple of years, bring me a new one.
I mean, but again, that's the same. It'll be the same story. Like, he can be the kick return specialist. Actually, speaking of Mississippi State, I think the Packers drafted Kylan Hill late last year. He's like great college running back. He was like their kickoff guy, because it takes time.
Yeah.
Like, Zeke is a rare guy who came in and like had all of that stuff. And like I get it, it's boring to talk about pass protection, but like there aren't that many running backs who teams trust to come in and do everything right away. So Tony needs to take a step in that regard. And then you can have a rookie come in and handle kickoffs and play in some blowouts or goal line packages, whatever. But that's what I would like to see.
I'll say this, and I went back and I looked it up, and here's why I think what I think of him. And I agree with you, Dave. If you look at the entire season, Zeke's been a pretty good pass catcher. It's really been the final 6 games of the season. Check this out. He had 20 targets in those final 6 games. He only had 8 catches of those 20 targets. Most of the games he had, all except for one of those games, he only had 1 catch. And a lot of those games he had drops. And so when you start looking at just how he's performed over the last 6 weeks, that's been where I was like, he just hasn't given them anything in the passing game. This last game, he had 4 targets and 1 catch for 0 yards. Like, that's not helping Dak. That's not helping anybody in this offense. Like, I think that you get a little bit more, and especially if you're talking about getting him out on the outside, catching passes. I think Pollard is more dangerous in those situations than Zeke is.
Yes.
Zeke isn't a guy that necessarily makes people miss anymore.
I want to be clear. I don't view Zeke as a dangerous weapon in the passing game. I would like to know, I would like to go back and look at those games and see how many of them are desperation passes to keep a play alive, where Zeke's up here trying to bobble it and keep it in play like that. And that's what he's been this year. He's been a last resort in the passing game. Like, oh God, they blitzed. This is a hot read. Zeke, just get 2 yards, whatever. We'll live to fight another day. Like, that's been his role in the passing game more often than not. And I just feel like I want to say it happened against Denver. I feel like it happened against either the Cardinals or somebody. I just have these like mental images of Tony over the middle, like dropping passes. I'm not saying it happened a lot, but it definitely happened.
It was during a game where a lot of them dropped the pass.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
the whole team dropped balls against Denver.
That might have been the one because I do remember he over the middle dropping a pass, and like everyone dropped one that day.
Yeah.
Tony, no doubt, would be more dangerous in the passing game in terms of like just get the ball in his hands and he'll do something with it.
And that's really my only point. It's not, that's the hard part about having these kinds of conversations. You can quickly get painted as, oh, you're against Zeke. It's not that. It's that I think right now Pollard provides more in the way of if he has. There was a play this last week. It was a sweep where Zeke got the ball. He was running to the right. They had it all blocked up. There was only one guy out there that was unblocked. It was a defensive back. There was a time when Zeke either runs that guy over or he makes that guy miss. He didn't. And that's not Zeke's game anymore. Like if he has that one guy, it's rare that we see him make that guy miss at this point in his career. I do think Pollard makes that guy miss. And that's my point. I think Pollard is more dangerous because he can do those kinds of things that I'm just not seeing regularly from Zeke.
Fun live question here from our friend Jack. I appreciate it. He says, what about Shewo Alanalua? Would he get a chance next year? I just want to bring it up because I do want to say I really think he makes the team if he stays healthy this year. And he's a running back, fullback hybrid. Maybe Kellen could have done some fun stuff with him. But he is in a big category of guys where I'm like, that's cool, and you can come to training camp, but like I'm not carving out a role for you in February of this year. Like the first thing Kyle Shanahan did when he signed in San Francisco, his first signing was Kyle Juszczyk. He was like, I'm gonna do some fun stuff with you. This ain't that.
Yeah. Well, also you got to remember too is all the running backs that come back from neck injuries.
Good point.
I'm pulling for him.
That is a fair point.
And I have just learned how to say his name, so I was excited about him. But we'll see. We'll see how he comes back.
But those are missed minor little storylines. Like, do they win the Super Bowl because he's on the team? No, but he was a fun player who could have done some unique stuff that might have unlocked some things for Kellen's offense for sure.
All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about about some of those drops. I want to talk about these wide receivers and how they've performed, and particularly CeeDee Lamb and what he's done over the last few weeks. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. For turning your living room into your office and your gym. For teaching Grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with...
And I'm Jay Novacek, and we're both with...
United Ag and Turf, the official tractor provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
So, if you need a tractor to bale some hay, a mower to cut some grass, or a gator to get some chores done...
Get a John Deere at United Ag and Turf.
And then, let's get to work.
Hey, Jay, that's my line.
Well, not today.
Get to work with a John Deere tractor package that's just right for you and your budget. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at Stetson.com/cowboys.
New Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. You deserve it.
I do deserve that.
You deserve decadent flavor without sugar and a day at the beach without sand getting everywhere. and a relaxing bath that your children don't interrupt.
I deserve all that?
It's really just a visual metaphor for Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. Everything you want, nothing you don't.
A visual metaphor on the radio. I do deserve that.
Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. The zero you deserve is finally here.
Back to the break.
All right. Get the ultimate fan experience for the ultimate Cowboy fan. If you're listening, you are the ultimate Cowboy fan for sure. Join Dallas Cowboys United, presented by Globe Life, starting at just $20. Join today.
There was. I'm sorry.
I like Nick's read there. Like, I just can't imagine you listen to this show if you kind of like the Cowboys.
Right.
You know, there's just no way.
We appreciate it
a little bit, especially on a day like today. It's a Tuesday following a playoff loss.
I got the funniest tweet yesterday. After my little speech I tried to give. I do the same thing every year. This guy on Twitter wrote he said, and some people said thank you for saying that. He kind of needed that, and some people are probably like FO. But anyways, this guy says, after time reflecting and speaking with my family, quote, my wife who hates when the Cowboys are on, that's his family, he says, I have decided to return for my senior season as a Cowboy fan.
There we go.
I would like to thank Cowboys Break Nick Eatman for taking me off the ledge with his speech.
There we go.
Nino is the name there. So
love it.
You got all these
return for the season year.
Yeah.
All these college kids with the transfer portal letters. I've decided to. I'm exiting the transfer portal. I'll stay here.
I believe in this team.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
I think that's funny. No, I mean funny. But I also want to reiterate too. I understand. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't ready for it. I got nothing for these guys. Like, what are we doing this week? I'm like, I don't know. Preparing for the Bucs. I mean,
yeah, I thought we'd be writing.
Yeah.
Rematch stories.
Yeah, rematch from week one. What's different this time around? 5 things that are different between the Bucs game.
Yeah. But Nick, you and I were talking about that this morning. They're really for us. We've never played longer than this. Usually because the NFL
and I wasn't
season,
going with you on that.
But it's true. When you say 1 week pass, this is as long as we've been in it. This is what our bodies know. Our bodies know about this time is when we're usually heading home at the very best case scenario.
I just wasn't prepared. I mean, I thought they'd beat San Francisco. I was rooting for San Francisco. I felt bad about that. Especially after watching them.
I got a lot of messages last night that were like, "Wish we played this Cardinals team."
Sure.
I was like, "You don't know what's going to happen if they play."
You don't. But
Cowboys 3 points to them too.
Cowboys don't have Donald. Last time I checked.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, Shannon upstairs today. Shannon was looking at the schedule. He goes, "Some pretty good games next week." I'm like. Too soon.
We talked about that after the show. I wish the Cowboys were still playing, but if it's on, I'm watching.
I couldn't even watch most of that game.
I watched the whole thing.
I just watched Eli and Peyton. It's probably not in that order, but yeah. When I saw Eli wearing that Death Row Records chain, that was pretty funny.
And I will be front and center. This is gonna be a fun weekend.
Oh, by the weekend I'll be okay. Yesterday it was too soon. I couldn't do it, man. I was just because the whole quarter I sat there and watched it. I'm thinking, man, but Dallas at their best, they could play with these teams. They just can't always show up and play at their best.
But they don't.
But their best.
But see, here's the thing though. Anything that happens in the NFC or even the AFC, because they played one of those teams, I don't think you can watch any game next weekend and be like, Dallas could have beat them. They didn't show that they could. They really didn't. They showed they could beat and they could whip the Eagles and the Giants more than this team beat them. But when it came to good on good, they didn't show they could do that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just more forgiving, and I get it is a results-driven business, and moral victories, all that good stuff. But they played the Bucs to the final snap. They played the Niners to the final snap.
Yeah, they could.
They played They were competitive against the Chiefs. They didn't look great doing it, but they didn't look like they didn't belong on that field.
But I think that's the point, though, Dave. The way I look at it is, and they did with Arizona. They played to the last snap, and guess what? In the playoffs, in that first round against San Francisco, they played to the final snap. Well, it wasn't quite a snap, but they played to the final snap. They're good enough they are good enough to play with any team in the league. They're not necessarily good enough to beat those elite teams. That's the difference.
I think we're saying the same thing.
A long way since yesterday.
Oh, trust me, I haven't. I haven't.
Well, your mood is completely different than yesterday. Yesterday, we should have had a camera just recording Dave all day long yesterday.
I'm still pretty bitter, to be honest with you. I'm just, yeah.
You know what's most interesting about that? I remember when Dave first got here, he was so emotionally detached from this team. Like it was just kind of like you were very much. I'm a media guy. Like I don't get caught up in that.
Here's the thing, and if we want to do this,
stuff.
we can't. Like I'm really not upset that they lost a playoff game. I'm upset. And I feel like this is how a lot of Cowboy fans feel. It's the hamster wheel of it all. Is like
I get you.
We did all of this, and it's like you didn't get near the mountaintop, but and that's even more frustrating. Like you got back to the same mile marker on the mountain, and then you tumbled back down, and you look around, and we're like, we gotta do this whole thing again?
No, you literally look back up at that mountain again, and you're like, wow, I tumbled a long way. I went up a long way, I tumbled a long way, and I wasn't even at the top, and now I got to start climbing all over.
It sucks that they lost, but like for me, it's not the pain of the Cowboys losing. It's the pain of thinking like, I got to start walking up this damn mountain again. I don't really want to right now.
Starting next week on the Draft Show. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the wide receivers. Again, it wasn't a great day for them yesterday either, I guess, holistically, if you think about it. CeeDee Lamb only had one catch. My question for you guys is, do you think the challenges with the wide receivers was more about what was happening with the offensive line and the quarterback, or do you think that just they weren't getting open, they weren't creating opportunities for the quarterback?
Yeah, I had to answer that. Somebody asked that question on Twitter. He had one catch. Is it Dak's fault or is it Kellen's fault? And I was like, I would put three people in that. I like him as a player a lot. I do. I think he can be really good. I would probably put CD as my most disappointing player of this team this year. If that was, I know Keanu Neal's a trendy pick there, but CD is probably the most disappointing for me.
Explain that for me.
Oxnard, he was Randy Moss. He was Randy Moss, and he was beating the guy that turned out to be really good this year, Trayvon Diggs. He was making play after play after play after play, and he didn't do that this year. He really didn't. He had some nice plays. He had 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, I believe, but he didn't make those. I don't know where to throw it, so I'm just going to throw it up here and let him go get it. And I thought he would be even more dynamic. Going into the season, I think it was a close battle between Justin Jefferson and CD on who's the better. It's not right now.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Vikings were in the playoffs, you know. I just don't think he took the next step that I thought he was going to take. He still took a step, but not as big as I thought he would take.
I don't know if I'm willing to say he's the most disappointing player on this team, but I'm glad you said it because I was going to. Like, what we saw in training camp looked like a guy who was about to take over the NFL. And and again, he wasn't drumming on scrubs. Trayvon Diggs led the league in interceptions. That's cool that he gave up yards. I get it, but like he was doing it against pretty solid cornerback play, and he just looked different. And he had some nice games. I mean, his game against New England was fantastic. Both of his touchdowns in that game were huge. But yeah, I was expecting more, to be honest. He had 5 more catches and 200 more yards than he did as a rookie, and that was playing without Dak for most of the year. I thought we were going to see a Justin Jefferson-like season. I think I said that yesterday. Like, all of a sudden, you know, we joked for a solid year, like, I can't believe the league let us have this guy. And the guy taking 5 or 6 picks later is better than him by a pretty significant margin right now. That's just facts.
Do you think that's all? You think a lot of that is on him, or do you think again this goes back to the quarterback and him not having time? So it still goes back to our original conversation, the offensive line.
I think there's a big chunk that's on him because I keep trying to make sense of it all, and I keep thinking I don't want to keep bringing myself to the first half of the season, but when you look at how they started the year, you were able to say, okay, wow, look at all the different weapons that they have, all the talent that they have. I was one to say each position had one of the best ones in the NFL. I would say that back then. And then looking at it now, you start looking around the roster and you're like, okay, you could argue Zeke with the injury. You could argue Dak got injured and came back. There's the mental aspect of things and things like that. Michael Gallup injured. But then CeeDee Lamb, he stayed pretty healthy. And he didn't show, talking about the abilities that you were mentioning, those kind of abilities that you've seen him do even last year when he started. So I don't know what exactly to pinpoint there to, okay, this is what happened to him, and that's why he wasn't as successful. And yes, obviously, the O-line is going to have an effect. Dak Prescott is going to have an effect. But at the end of the day, there were many plays, too, that the ball could have been caught by him, and he didn't. And that's the thing that you saw last year, how many crazy plays and balls that he would catch out of nowhere. And you're like, wow, and that made one of the biggest highlights for his career. And then that was all gone. So what do you give the blame to other than just him and whatever we might not know that he's struggling with, but for sure we haven't heard of any kind of injury that might have been affecting him.
Yeah, I was also trying to think too, like we didn't see those plays that we saw in camp, but did they even attempt it though?
Good question.
I mean, like,
well, but I think it's also, I don't know if it's I don't even look at it.
You don't have to be open though. You don't have to be open for that. It's just first and goal in the 4, throw it up.
I get that, but I would even ask the question further than that. Like that play, it was a touchdown last year where he contorted his body. What game is that? Minnesota.
That's what, yeah.
And the question becomes, has there been a single catch like that even this year? I'm not talking just to throw it up. I'm talking just to play where he does something that's so remarkable where it's like his athleticism is so much better than the guys that are out there trying to cover him.
I don't care about this conversation, to be very blunt about it. No. I mean, I'm taking it in a different direction because I've been thinking about this, and I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit of a philosophy change or something like that. I don't know. I still don't believe in the idea of like being stubborn. But is the play caller doing enough to force the issue to get the ball into the hands of his good players?
How many times was he targeted this last game? I barely remember him.
I think he was
getting close to the ball.
I think he was targeted 5 times,
which is insane.
5 targets, 1 catch. But like you look at the numbers. CD was targeted 120 times on the year. Second best after that was Dalton Schultz, 104 times. Which like Dalton's great, but should he be second on your team in targets? Like in terms of like trying to get the ball to that guy.
Amari.
Then you go look at Cooper.
That's why Amari was.
You know how many times Cooper Kupp got targeted this year?
Probably had 200 times.
191 times.
Right.
He got 145 catches.
Like they always threw the ball to him. And by the way, he made something of it though.
And like these are on teams where there are other weapons. Like I know he got hurt. If you extrapolate his numbers for a full season, Robert Woods was on pace for 85 targets. Odell Beckham's only been there for half a season, but if you extrapolate, he's on pace for 65. They've got an athletic tight end as well. Tampa, I'm looking at Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were both targeted north of 100 times. I'm just not convinced the Cowboys are making enough of an effort. Like, we're getting the ball to our studs instead of go through your progressions, and if they're not open, then find the other guy.
Yeah.
That's useful, don't get me wrong, but there is an element of this thing where like you got to be like, we have guys that we have brought here to be better than everybody.
Dez?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking, let's be careful now because we did have that situation a couple of years ago.
I know.
Where,
it can't be either or.
I know.
It can't be either or.
We talked about early in the year, like the thing that's making this thing work is that these receivers are meshing together, and Dak doesn't care. He's going to get it to whoever. If it's Noah Brown, it's Noah Brown, which it probably shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But so
that's a great.
But Stafford's not doing that, and Stafford's like, I'm getting the ball to Cooper Kupp.
They did it on Sunday. I don't remember the exact moment in the game, but like Cedric and Noah checked in 12 personnel. And that was when Dak threw probably his only truly deep pass of the day. Well, I mean, the Amari touchdown was only 20 yards. I'm talking he threw it 40 yards downfield. I think it was even in double coverage. And I was like, why are we doing this when...
the deep ball.
Why are we doing this when Lamb and Cooper aren't on the field? Like, what... Why? Like, it's great to say we're going to take what we're given. We're not going to change what we do based on what they're doing. But, like, you don't have to be willfully ignorant of it either. Like, hey, maybe our Pro Bowler and our first-round pick should be the guys that we're testing double coverage with or whatever. I think you got to find a better balance there. Like, you can't just be completely stubborn and just be bound and determined all the time. But I think you got to make more of a concerted effort to put the ball in your playmakers' hands.
Yeah, I was going to say this real quick. Yeah. I think that we talk about it, and actually they talked about this early in the season a lot. They were going to aggressively take what the defense gave them. I think the difference in that philosophy is
it's been more passive recently.
Yeah, I know, but I would even say, even from that standpoint, you look at a team like we were just talking about Cooper Kupp. I think the difference is what they do with the Rams is they say, we're just not going to take aggressively what you give us. We're going to create ways that we can get the ball into Kupp's hands.
Ding, 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 ding.
Same thing with San Francisco. We're going to create ways to get the ball in Deebo's hands. By the way, everybody knows who's playing San Francisco. Deebo Samuel is going to get the ball. We got to stop Deebo Samuel. They still find ways, creative ways, to get the ball in his hands. And that, I think, may be the difference here, is that Dallas is saying, hey, we'll get it in Cedric Wilson's hands if he's the guy that's open. Mm-hmm. And we expect him to do the things that Amari can do instead of saying, no, Amari's our best player. Right. Or CD's our best player. We're going to find ways and create ways where we can get them open and get the ball in their hands and let them do things.
Right. Which, and I wanted to I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that's a point worth talking about. And my friend Seth Galina for Pro Football Focus actually wrote a really great story yesterday about Kellen's offense. You can go read it if you want to. It's really interesting, just about it relies a lot on Dak to do everything and go through his progressions, whereas a lot of other coaches scheme easy looks for their quarterback to get balls to guys. And there's this weird toxic attitude to where it's you can only be a good quarterback if you don't have a line and you make all the progressions yourself. You know what I mean? It's well, if Dak was great, he could overcome this defensive line killing him every down. It's why can you only be good if life is really difficult? Why? It's not a bad thing for your coach to scheme up easy throws to Amari Cooper for you. And that hasn't been a thing enough for this offense, I think.
I don't like comparing anybody to Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's fair. He's never gonna be that, But you can see, especially for Brady, you can see why he has played for so long. He is not worried about the stats at all. He is not worried about making all the best throws. There was that one play we saw with Dak where all season he keeps saying, "Yeah, I got a little greedy there." You don't have to get greedy. You take what's there and keep going. It's 1st and 20, and Cooper is going to give you 7-8 yards, maybe break a tackle and make more than that. But you trying to throw the ball to Blake Jarwin down the field, that's not your strength, and that's not his strength right now in the middle of him coming back and all that. I just don't think that was a smart play. And now it's 2nd and 20. You're trying to get in field goal range. And I just thought that was an example of somebody like a Brady who's just okay, you're going to give me that? Boom, I got it, because I'm going to do another 7, and I'm going to do another 7, and I'm going to get a first down. And I think the greedy part of is something we don't talk about as much.
And I wonder, do you remember from week 2 against the Chargers, which was a very penalty-heavy game, if you remember, not on the level that we've seen in the second half of the season, but there were a lot of flags in that game. From there going to New England, they kept getting out of those 1st and 20 situations. They would get a hold, and then they would get it back instantly. And they did it pretty reliably for a month.
Yeah.
Maybe that just gave them an inflated sense of confidence.
That arrogance you talked about yesterday.
They were just we're getting this back right here. Don't worry about it. We're getting 22. I don't care if it's 1st and 20, and that's not a way to live.
Yeah.
You get the feeling that Dak is going to say something it won't be to us. It'll be to some CBS radio serious interview or something where he'd be like, "I was never the same after the calf injury. It hurt me all year long. I was playing with something like that." Where you're like,
I honestly
get that feeling.
I don't think he'll say that now. I think once he retires and he looks back on his career, I think he will talk about this season and say, "I wasn't right." Because we all see it. Some of the things we see from him, we haven't seen Dak be, in my opinion, be as inaccurate as he was this year.
I hope
there
when
are
he
so
retires,
many times
he doesn't talk about this season. I hope this isn't a season that he talks about.
Well, he'll talk about it from the standpoint of the question will be what was the season that was most disappointing you? And I think then he'll get into it. I honestly don't think. I don't think Dak was himself this year for whatever reason. I don't know the reason. Only he knows the reason. I don't think Dak was the same.
I don't get why he would be so defensive about it if that was the case. He just refused to even.
Well, because of his personality. Like, he's that type of personality where when you have those people that are extremely optimistic and always thinking the positive, they will never let the negative ever get into their mind. Even if it might be true, they never let it get into their mind because it takes them away from their optimism.
Yeah,
well, I was thinking of that in like the injury aspect. I'm like, it would have been so much easier if that was really the case to just say, okay, he is struggling with something. Because then you get people that are like us or other people from the media looking at it like, well, makes sense. He's struggling with this injury, but he's out there battling through it and blah, blah, blah. So, because yesterday I was thinking of that randomly. I'm like, okay, is this something that in the next few weeks we're going to hear like, kind of like Zeke, but we knew about Zeke and we knew he was battling, but something that came about with Dak, oh yeah, he was still dealing with that, and that's kind of what led to his inaccuracy or the way that he was playing and all that. But then at the same time, like, that would have been, if that's the case, it would have been great to be mentioned all throughout the season because then you get a lot less heat for it.
No, but and I've been around the block enough times, and I don't want to put words in Dak's mouth, but I could see that happening. Or even if it doesn't, it drives me crazy because, like, and it doesn't have to be Dak. So-and-so is struggling, and we come on the show and we're like, he looks like crap, he's struggling. And then so-and-so is like, you a-holes, like, hey, I've got a high-grade ankle sprain that nobody knows about and this, that, and the other. I'm like, can you say it then? Because otherwise, like, I got nothing to go on. I gotta I'm just watching the game and trying to analyze it based on what I see. And you hiding it from me isn't helping anybody, yourself included. Because people go easier on you if they know that you're banged up.
But I want to be clear. I don't know that I think that it was an injury or he wasn't right physically from the standpoint of he was still hurting.
Think it's mental.
I think it actually is, and I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but sometimes when you get an injury, what tends to happen is you start overcompensating for the area that was injured. Even once you're healthy, you still overcompensate because you don't quite use it the same way. You don't quite trust that muscle, that ligament. You don't quite want to put the same torque on it. And so it changes your mechanics a little bit on how you do things. It happens with me with running all the time. Like you just change up what you do because you're trying to overcompensate for the pain that you were feeling before, even though that pain may not be there anymore. And I just wonder if some of that stuff happened for Dak where he just wasn't the same it wasn't quite perfect the way it was before because he was still overcompensating for my bone was sticking out of my leg months ago, right? And I just wonder, don't know this, I just wonder if maybe that was a situation.
Well, hopefully not, because then that makes me think of a guy like Leighton Vander Esch and him with the times that he got injured. I mean, every time he came back, he just seemed like worse and worse. And I don't think that it was necessarily a physical thing. It was more, a combination of it, but at the same time, maybe mentally where he's like not playing as hard, not throwing himself to tackle as hard because of in his mind, he's going to get hurt again in his neck and this and that. So I don't know. Hopefully it's not that because it could melt into like next year and the years to come. I don't know.
I would probably think this year, I would guess Dak is probably going to spend a lot of time in the offseason just working on his fundamentals. That's what I would guess because we saw him a lot of times this year kind of throwing off his back foot. I would probably guess this offseason he's going to spend a lot of time working on footwork, working on his fundamentals, the things he couldn't do last year because he was rehabbing. He couldn't really work on those things that you have to keep up on as a quarterback. I would suspect he's going to do a lot of that this offseason. All right, we're going to take our final break. We'll come back, and we want to hear from you guys. 888-855-2297. Let's get some phone calls. Let's hear what you guys have to say about this team, where they go from here. We'll do that when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. For turning your living room into your office and your gym. For teaching grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with...
And I'm Jay Novacek, and we're both with...
United Ag and Turf, the official tractor provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
So, if you need a tractor to bale some hay, a mower to cut some grass, or a gator to get some chores done...
Get a John Deere at United Ag and Turf.
And then, let's get to work.
Hey, Jay, that's my line.
Well, not today.
Get to work with a John Deere tractor package that's just right for you and your budget. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at stetson.com/cowboys.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break. We only have a few more minutes here. We're live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, so we're going to take a phone call. We got a call from Lance and Cheyenne. Lance, what up?
Lady and gentlemen, how y'all doing?
Good.
How are you?
Good. Hey, we were talking about Kellen Moore and the way he directed the offense this year. Kellen Moore is the problem. When you got Amari Cooper, which is the best route runner on this team, and you don't even attempt to get to him, that's the first problem. CD is the next. I can't blame CD for not catching balls because we don't know how Kellen Moore is calling up the plays. So I'm leaving all this on basically Kellen Moore. What Jerry Jones needs to do is step in. I'm not sure when McCartney was hired if he was limited to what he could do, what could he not do with the coordinator. But I blame a lot of this on McCartney, too, because he should have stepped in when we stopped running. We need to run to set up the pass. And yes, our offensive line needs to be fixed, but Kellen Moore is the problem.
All right, we appreciate the call.
Problem, too. Dak is the problem, too.
Okay.
But Kellen Moore is the problem.
All right, we appreciate the call. And I actually do think there is some truth to that. I do think that it didn't seem like they had a lot of answers for the issues that they had faced since the Denver game offensively. Didn't seem like they could quite find their groove, find their way out of that. And that has to be, you have to give a lot of that to the offensive coordinator of having to figure that out.
I don't like, and I'm not going to, I don't like calling for people to be fired, and I'm not going to sit here and like call for Kellen Moore to be fired, but it's 2 months of really mediocre offense and not getting results against quality opponents, and there's not a very long list of excuses. I mean, the offensive line wasn't good, but like everybody was available. They tried McGovern, that didn't work. They put Connor Williams back in there, that didn't really work. Maybe they could have moved Lyle to guard, like break glass in case of emergency, whatever. I don't know, but there's not a long list of excuses when you're like, well, why didn't this work? I mean, am I wrong for thinking that? So, like I said, I'm not calling for somebody to lose their job, but that is something that the Cowboys should look at and consider, and it's concerning. Like, I'm not as confident in Kellen Moore as I was before the bye week this season.
I thought the caller was a tad bit hypocritical in some of the things that he said of saying, I'm not going to put it on CeeDee Lamb because I don't know how the play calls are with Kellen Moore. But if you don't know how the play calls are, that you're also calling him the problem. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know. But as Dave pointed out, and then the caller pointed it out too, offensive line, Dak, Kellen Moore. Yeah, it's a big problem all the way around. Everybody has a say in this. I just know this. If you fix that offensive line, guys can run behind it and Dak can throw behind it. A rookie quarterback in the 4th round who shouldn't be starting is starting and succeeding and wins Rookie of the Year because the offensive line is awesome. this offensive line needs to get better, and then I think that's where the first start is. Because you can't change Dak, and you can't change Zeke, not right now. So fix that.
And I will. And if Kellen Moore is here next year, I agree with Nick. I mean, that's just the easiest fix, because I don't agree with that part about, like, they needed to keep running. It wasn't working. Like, what game did you see them play after the bye where you had confidence that they could run the ball when they needed to? I don't think there was a game this year that pissed me off more than the Saints game, just in terms of having to watch it, because they just kept stubbornly running and it didn't work. And ironically, Tony scored on a sweep when they finally decided to go outside, but like their bread and butter in between the tackles sucked. And they wouldn't go away from it, and I wanted to scream. I hated that game plan so much. Yeah. So I don't think that is the right idea either. I think either change the scheme or fix the offensive line so that this scheme can get back to working the way that we saw it.
All right, we appreciate you guys joining us. That's a wrap. That's the final regular season show for the 2021 season. We will start next week on our off-season shows. We'll start talking about some big picture things, like what's going to happen with these coaches, who are going to stick around, who may be gone. Till then, for Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Amber Garcia, I am Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this?